Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Kim, and I'm the Associate Chair in the School of Architecture, and I'm also the Director of the undergraduate program. I'm super happy that you all are here. I'm particularly pleased to not only see the names of folks who are starting to look at colleges and thinking about where you might want to apply to. It's such an exciting time for you. But I'm also happy to see many familiar names there too of our current students. So it's great to see your names, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Um, so I have invited four of our to join us today, and the way that the webinar is going to be structured is we're going to start first with just kind of an open discussion with our four guests, Jackie, T-Jack, Ashlyn, and Noah. And as Carmen had mentioned, there is a Q&A box. We invite you to please put your questions in the Q&A. We'll either answer them right there on the spot, or if it's something that we may want to open up for a broader discussion, then we'll bring it into the conversation. And then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about the program, and then share information about a link to a video that gives a full program overview, and then a little bit about the admissions process. So I want to thank Jackie, T-Jack, and Ashlyn, and Noah who are joining us today. It's really great to see you all. And so I guess what I wanted to do is maybe start the conversation by talking about a school search process, knowing that we do have folks who are starting that process. And I'm curious to know, when you all were starting to think about schools, what was that game changer for you that really clinched the deal and made you want to come to Georgia Tech?
So I'll go first. So I actually did not apply anywhere except for Georgia Tech, which is, do not do that. Apply other places just in case. But I knew kind of from the start that's where I wanted to go, simply just for the reputation, not for sports teams, but for the academics. The thing that kind of sealed the deal was the actual tour of the campus. It just kind of, I can't really explain it, but it just felt like I was where I needed to be at the time. And it's a beautiful city, and that was kind of it for me.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Noah, and I agree with Ashlyn that coming and visiting Georgia Tech made a big difference. I mean, there's so many intangible things you experience that just kind of scream, this is the place. But apart from those, I mean, you have the more concrete things too, that Georgia Tech is a fantastic bang for your buck. You get all the resources of a big city, all the firms nearby. On campus, we have, incredible resources for fabrication, amazing faculty. So, both sides of my brain were kind of appeased by Georgia Tech being the more, emotional side, and the more, let's put it on paper, it checked all the boxes for me.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo what Noah said. I'm T-Jack. Really, for me, it was the experience of coming to the city. I'm originally from true suburbia in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I was looking specifically for a school that was in a city. I wanted a completely different experience than what I had grown up with. And actually, there's this one bend in the interstate when you're coming from the airport where you catch a glimpse of the skyline. And at that moment, one, I was kind of taken back. I was like, those are pretty big buildings. But then it just kind of grew from there. The energy and the excitement of being within something much larger than just a school in the middle of a cow field. Don't get me wrong, those are okay too. But there are opportunities in the city that you don't have elsewhere. And it was really beneficial because Georgia Tech could be a very insular bubble if you wanted it to be. And you could kind of just peer from the bubble outside to the city and be awed by the buildings and the energy, or you could take part in it, and that was a huge selling point for me.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and very similar to everyone else. I think definitely the campus has a huge draw, but I think the real game changer for me was actually interacting with the students. So my visit to Georgia Tech was through a program called Girls Night Out. I'm not sure if they were able to have that this year, but typically Tech hosts a weekend where girls and their families are invited to come, and you spend the weekend. You spend kind of Friday through Sunday. You attend classes, you stay overnight with these different girls that are hosting you, and you really get to understand day to day what it feels like to be a student. And I think, going to classes, things like that are very typical of most colleges, but what was different was really the way these students interacted in their classes, the way they interacted with each other. They were so engaged in their discussions in class with their professors and with their peers that it didn't feel like, I would just get lost in the shuffle of a really big campus. And then, after a very serious, long lecture, we'd go and have lunch, and they would just, talk about what Netflix show they were binge watching or what fun plans they had. And then at the same time, talk about the startup that they were working for, things like that. And so it was really just these, well-rounded students that I wanted to surround myself with, to kind of, better myself by their influence on me. And so, absolutely the campus is beautiful, and I think the students really just add to that as well.
That's great. And what a great program. I actually have to say that I'm not familiar with that program. I have to look into that one, Jackie. But so you all did make the decision to come to Georgia Tech. What was your favorite thing about being a student once you got here, specifically in the School of Architecture?
I'll take that one to start. When I got the questions from Julie, it was kind of funny because I actually had to remember that far back. I'm a little bit older than the rest of the panelists, but it was actually this answer came very quickly to mind, and it was the fact that there was this really strong sense of camaraderie between the students, and as well as with the faculty themselves. The School of Architecture is pretty unique at Georgia Tech. We are a small family that's kind of been battle tested. You end up going through a lot of, just you're learning these things together, but you're in studio together, and you're having to meet these deadlines. There's pressure, and all of a sudden you kind of look around and you realize that you've got some of your best friends all in the same room with you at 3 a.m, hanging out, drawing, having a blast, listening to music or whatever. And then all of a sudden, randomly, a faculty member comes by, and it's like, wait, shouldn't you be in bed or something? But I mean, it really is something that is entirely unique to Georgia Tech, and I think is was really special. Something that I look very fondly on.
So T-Jack, I'm not sure if they had these when you were at Tech, but probably my third year or so, they got ping pong tables, which definitely came in handy at 3 a.m. and added to the camaraderie.
No, we did not have ping pong tables. I can't believe that.
But I mean, just kind of echoing off of what he said, it really is, you become this family. And I think, I really expected architecture school to be very competitive. I didn't think people would want to help one another. And I was genuinely surprised that it really was the complete opposite. On a daily basis, you are giving and receiving critiques from your peers, from your professors, everyone. And ultimately, it really makes your project that much better because you understand where all of the, the plot holes are, how to fix it, how to defend it, and, really be non-combative in the way that you're defending your project. And then, how do you give constructive criticism to your peers because they're also your friends so that, they have their best project, but you can still maintain a good relationship. And I think, that's something that I carry with me even today in the workplace is how do I have all these relationships with people and still, make sure that we're still doing our best and striving for more. But I definitely think the ping pong tables really added to that.
So TJAC actually stole what I was going to say about the professors. But my favorite part, other than the professors and like the relationship built between students, would probably have to be learning about design thinking freshman year. And I know you guys might not know what that is, but it's basically how to see the world from a design standpoint. So like a doorknob, why is a doorknob shaped the way it is? Why does it go together the way it does? And you might not think like a mouse, like that's not architecture, but architecture can be applied to many different scales. So in some sense it is, you're building something, even if it is just something for your hand. So it's kind of just, it taught me to see the world from a design perspective and how things go together. And that was probably my favorite thing from one of my favorite things, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I have to echo TJAC as well. Being on a first name basis with your, professors and going through course after course with the same students for 4 years, I mean, you definitely do become a family. And I don't think you get that like you would in a larger lecture course. And I think what's also so unique about architecture is, unlike some other majors where you study for a test and take the test and get a grade, with architecture, at the end of the day, after the late nights, all the madness, you get to stand up there and present your work to faculty from the school, famous architects from around the country, from around the world, and really just take pride in both what you do and, take pride in the projects that your classmates have prepared as well.
That's great. I realized as you all were speaking that I should have actually prefaced this conversation and give a little bit of background for each of you guys for those who are attending who may not know. I'll start with you, Noah. So Noah graduated in 2019, and following graduation, Noah has been working at John Portman and Associates. Spent this past year basically kind of honing his skills in practice, and then also working on his portfolio to apply to graduate school, and will be starting at Yale in a couple of weeks. Jackie and Ashlyn, both Jackie and Ashlyn graduated in 2017. Is that right? Yeah, 2017. Time flies. And what's great about both of them is they're leveraging their undergraduate degree in a really interesting ways. Jackie is involved on the development side of things. So she's basically taking those skills and kind of problem solving, problem seeking, and applying those to the development world. And Ashlyn, and I think Ashlyn started, if I'm not mistaken, maybe started this job while you were still a student at Carroll Daniel Construction. And so Ashlyn is actually on the construction management side of things. So very interesting kind of career trajectories for both of them. And then TJAC earned his Bachelor of Science at Georgia Tech, and then he went on to go study for his Master of Architecture at the University of Miami. So I guess he already showed that he was from Virginia Beach, and so he ends up at another beach. And he's currently an associate principal at Cooper Carey Architects here in Atlanta. And of course, he has a series of other professional experiences as well. But just to kind of give you all some context in terms of where these four are in their career. I should have started with that. So, but I think that might also help you all when you think about the kinds of questions you might want to ask our guest panelists. Now that I've kind of given a little bit of a background about your profession and your jobs, let me ask you a question about summers while you were in school. Did you pursue certain activities while you were in school, like work every summer, or are there certain things that you did to prepare you for a job?
Yeah, I would say that most of the students in my class were very proactive. about, staying busy over the summertime. And I was fortunate. I got to do a whole mix of things. So my first summer, I went to New York City for 6 weeks and did a summer studio, studying classical architecture with an organization. The next summer, I was ready to, leave home again. So packed my bags and went to Greece and Italy with some classmates and some Georgia Tech faculty to do about 2 months of study abroad, going to all the ancient ruins, learning how to draw, just really taking the most that you can out of that. And then from then on, I mostly did internships in the summer with some local firms in Atlanta. And then I did a 1-week externship back in New York with the prestigious firm Rogers Partners through a program at Georgia Tech. It's called an externship. So you basically go for your spring break. You get matched with, one of the top firms in the country and get to spend, your spring break, not on the beach, but in an architecture firm, which, for most of us, that's where we want to be anyways.
Yeah, so I somewhat did similar. I studied abroad, Greece and Italy. I definitely would say study abroad as much as you can while you're there. I TA'd, so teacher's assistant for an intro to architecture course with Julie, actually. And that's another really good thing you can go ahead and do. I don't know if we're doing that the upcoming year or what's going on with that, but that's definitely a good thing to look into if you're considering architecture and aren't sure or just want to see what it'll be like. It is very indicative of what the actual School of Architecture is like. So it's a really good program. Julie did not tell me to sell that. I'm doing that on my own. And then my last summer, I interned for Carol Daniel, and I have a job there now. I found it was good to go ahead and find what I like to do and stick with it the semester before I graduated, because then it makes it easier to roll into a full-time job if that's the role you want to go.
I also similarly studied abroad the summer after my first year in architecture. I did the design build program in South Africa, which is a program led by a Georgia Tech professor, and it was in collaboration with a few different universities in Germany. I absolutely fell in love with the idea that, we would put together a design and then physically go build it in another country with locals from that country and students from other countries. And it was just kind of, this ultimate experience. And so, that next spring, I then did an exchange in Germany with one of those schools that collaborated with us so that we could design the next project for the next summer in Ghana. And so I actually ended up spending the next 3 years working for that professor, getting the trip, the students, the design, kind of everything, together as his go-to person. And so on the site, I, managed the students, the local workers, material orders, budgets, kind of really anything that needed to get done. And so it gave me a ton of not very typical work experience, but I had a lot of project management experience that I really don't think I would have gained really as quickly or from any other program. And then, throughout the semester, I'd also just help set that program up, work on writing awards, grants, things like that to, get the program off the ground and be able to go for the next summer. And so, I do think my experience is a little unique, but I don't think it's super unheard of at Georgia Tech. I think a lot of students, especially in the architecture program, have the opportunity to not only attend a study abroad, but to be a TA for a study abroad program in the summer. And I think that really gives you kind of an opportunity to go above and beyond and also to connect with professors. So while I never worked an actual internship for a company, I think that was a very unique way to gain work experience through the university.
Fun. I like hearing all the options that everybody had. There weren't as many summer study abroad programs at the School of Architecture when I was there, and I'm really jealous of y'all's experiences. I took a little bit of a different route. Even when I was in high school, I was helping a friend's dad in the summers build houses, big custom homes. Started by sweeping up the construction site out and graduated all the way up to being a framer. So I continued that. I think my first summer, as well as I waited tables. And then I interned my second summer. And I interned actually back home. I wasn't ready to be gone for the full year because I was looking forward to the fact that I actually was going to study abroad for my full fourth year at Georgia Tech. And so I was kind of balancing that out a little bit. My mom thanked me later. But then right before I went to study abroad, I did some volunteer work abroad, and that was very rewarding as well. Prepared me for living abroad for the rest of the year while studying at Georgia Tech. It was part of the Paris program, and I feel like whatever you plan on doing, I think the important thing is that you don't forget kind of everything you've learned during your years of study, and so even if you're just doing volunteer work, you're going to start to apply the lessons of design that you have learned. Or for Jacqueline, doing all of the work, kind of project management on a very real level. She was getting to apply the things that she was learning as well, and I just feel like even if you're waiting tables, it'll seep in, and you'll start to realize, we could do these things a little bit better. It's a bit pervasive once you catch that design thinking that Ashlyn was talking about in her first year, first semester at Tech. It opens your eyes.
That's great. It's great hearing, Jackie. I hadn't heard you specifically share your experiences with the design, develop, build, and the kind of range of opportunities that offered you, and so that's really great to see that, to hear that, and and that program actually is still continuing today. Design, develop, build didn't happen the summer abroad, nor did the Greece and Italy program, and the pre-college program that Ashlyn talked about is still going on, and in fact. This summer we offered a fully remote option for the camp, and we finished up a 2-week session a little over a week ago, and getting ready to start the next 2-week session. So pretty exciting. So I guess then, as you kind of think back about your time at Tech, from where you sit now, what kind of advice would you offer to your younger self? Like anything related to kind of like a work-life balance or time management, extracurriculars, like what kinds of things would you tell your 17, 18-year-old self now, based on what you know now?
So I'll take this one because I feel like I have so much advice to offer my younger self. I wish I could go back and I like where I am and I think I did a great job, but gosh, there's so many things I could have improved on. I think really the two things that I find the most important, I would have introduced myself more to professors, and I would have tried to not limit learning to only be in the classroom. So that first, I think creating a relationship with your professors changes the way that you experience your class. You're no longer just a bystander while they're throwing knowledge at you. Now you're an active participant and facilitator, of the learning environment that you are a part of. I also think it really helps that when you need a lifeline, it's already established. And so, it's not at the end of the semester that you're running up to the professor and saying, hey, I don't get it and I need help on the final. You've had a relationship throughout the entire year and they've really come to know who you are, as a person and as a student. And then I also think, not limiting yourself to only learning when you're in the classroom. You're on a college campus, you're in the middle of a huge city. There are so many lectures, there are plays, there are shows, movies, you name it, the university has it. And there are so many people around you who want to share what they're doing, what they're learning, what they're a part of, that it's really an experience that's kind of once in a lifetime, where you have all of these highly intellectual people, highly motivated people together in one area. And, I think, only being so focused on going to class and getting a good grade and all of that, I think limits, also the time that you can spend outside of class learning. And so I just wish I had taken advantage more of those opportunities and left more time for that type of learning as well.
So similarly, I feel like I have a lot to offer my younger self, but I was one to schedule a lot. I was involved in a fraternity on campus. I did intramurals, as many as I could fit into every single session. Obviously, doing architecture, being involved in other campus-related organizations. It was a lot, and it was a blast. I didn't sleep much, and that's okay. When you're young, you can do that, and it's no problem. Trust me. When you start having kids, you need your sleep. But the idea of taking a little bit more time to kind of reflect and realize just kind of how awesome the experience is and to enjoy it. I think sometimes I was too busy to realize even how much fun I was having on occasion. And so being able to, I don't know, go to lunch and with friends and just sit around and be like, yeah, this is incredible. So perhaps not scheduling quite so much, not being involved in quite so much. But it's a balance, and everybody will reach their own balance for it. So.
Yeah, kind of touching on the topic of balance too. I will say that for me, the first couple years in architecture school, a lot of us, including myself, got so caught up, in the architecture and put so much time into that, some of us kind of stopped focusing on the hobbies and interests that we had in high school and coming into college. And you come to find that, architecture is shaped by so many different things. And that those hobbies and those interests that you had can actually be used to enhance your design work down the road. So if you're into singing, dancing, really anything, you can take those skills as long as you, find that time, find that balance to keep working on them. Again, that's enjoyment. That's fun outside of school, as some of the others were touching on. But you'll really learn that doing that will actually pay dividends for your design work as well.
Great.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, that's great. Go ahead, Ashlyn.
So advice I would give my younger self would definitely be, don't be so hard on myself. I think almost every student at Tech is coming from being very intelligent at their high school, and it's kind of a realization when you get there that everyone's smart, and which is great. You're in a community of intelligent people and you learn so much, but that first freshman year, you kind of take a hit and just realize, hey, like, I'm not the smartest person here anymore, which I needed. And it's just, I remember calling my mom after a physics test my freshman year. I was like, Mom, I think I did all that. And she was like, well, did you try your best? And I was like, yeah. She was like, well, that's all you can do. And that kind of was my mantra for the rest of it, is it's only as hard as you make it, and you can only be as hard on yourself as you are on yourself. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect.
So I want to ask a question, but I want to offer a little bit of context, and knowing that in our attendees that we have a range of both current students who are in the degree right now, and then others who are just starting to look at colleges. And the reason I'm going to make that distinction is because I want to ask a question about resumes and portfolios. And so for those of you who are thinking about applying to Georgia Tech to study architecture, there is an optional portfolio that is part of the application process. And so certainly if you're applying to come study as an undergraduate, we don't expect that there's, a robust, portfolio of architectural work as that you've done, while you're in high school. In fact, I mean, that's why you're applying to study architecture as a college student. So for those portfolios, we're really looking for students to have kind of thought about, we're looking at ways that we can understand how you think creatively. So if you've done, studio art classes or photography or woodworking, painting, those are the kinds of things that, we would expect to see in a portfolio for a student who's applying to study architecture. And it just helps us understand how you think through design problems. So I don't want anyone, to be concerned that I don't have a lot of architecture in my portfolio and, how is that going to look? So for the students who are here and are, whether they're, a rising sophomore, a junior, or a senior, I wanted to maybe hear a little bit from the four of you about, what are some tips or ideas here? Like, what did you do to make your resume and your portfolio stand out? And maybe at the same time, kind of reflect on, how did you get your first job?
So I guess I'm a little different because I didn't actually need my portfolio to get my job. But I mean, that's okay too. I did still have one. In reflection, probably should have worked on it more than I did. But from what I've heard, simpler is better. So don't try to overdo it. In terms of your resume, don't lie. You're going to have to back it up eventually, and that's not cool. Actually be able to do what you say you can do, and just do what you're passionate about. Don't try to just do stuff to do it, because companies are going to see through that. And then in terms of how I got my job now, it was actually through a student that was in the same class with me, Maggie. She was working with Carol Daniel, and she was just like, hey, I think you'd fit really well with this company. So I interned and ended up loving it. So definitely stay in contact with the students that you're in studio with and your professors, because they're a good source too.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I think to add to that, as far as resumes and portfolio, get other people to look at it. Your peers, your classmates are great. Faculty is another great resource, and even professionals. And what's really nice about Georgia Tech is we have several student organizations that put on critiques for resumes and portfolios throughout the semester, especially before the career fair, which, to answer that second question, is how I got my current position and all of my internships. So it's really good to attend those. I actually attended as a professional this past year as a Portman representative to review student portfolios and resumes. And it's always good. I mean, I'm one of the people that looks at those that come in. So if I can give my, seal of approval at that point, it can only help you out. So definitely, get it before the eyes of other people. It goes a long way.
Yeah, I would add to that, that typically when I'm looking at a portfolio for a potential hire, I like to see the architecture work, but I also like to see a little bit more about who that person is. And similar to what Jackie was saying, that we were going over before, and that Julie was mentioning about the process with the portfolios. I think it's one that you have to really balance your intent and who you are with the architecture work. So I like to see that there's a side of you that's applying your design or your passions in a different way. So if you're an artist, you do computer programming, whatever it is, do show me more than your the fourth gallery that you designed as a part of your third studio, or whatever the project is, because I want to see that you're a bit more well-rounded than what they're necessarily just teaching you in school. So that goes for your resume as well. That don't stick to just the academic and just the architecture related. Throw some tidbits in there about yourself, because it's always a good conversation starter.
I think kind of, going back to what Ashlyn was saying about her connections, I would consider my first job, sorry, my dog is barking if you hear him. So I would consider my first job working for that professor on the design build projects. And he actually never saw my portfolio because I didn't have one at the time. It was only my first year. But what he did see, was my work ethic through his program. And I think oftentimes that's more telling, kind of like how T-Jack is saying, show me something other than what you did in your typical studio. This can also go on to be, show me what your work ethic is like, things like that. I think then for my current job, I actually landed that from another connection as well. I tutored in college, and one of the families, the father owned the company that I now work at. Again, he saw the way I carried myself, how knowledgeable and professional I was, and he never even took a look at my resume. I'm not saying this is the path for everyone. You should have a resume. You should have a portfolio. I'm just saying that, you should always make sure that you're keeping your options open, your connections open, that you're still having these conversations and dialogues. And, most of the professors at Georgia Tech either work for or have connections at firms. And I actually find that to be probably the most effective way to be able to get your foot in the door, rather than just cold reading a resume or cold viewing a portfolio.
That's great. And, I mentioned that, Noah, you're getting ready to start at Yale in the fall, and that TJAC, you also earned your Master of Architecture. So this question really kind of goes for both of you. How did you decide where to apply to go to graduate school?
So I guess first and foremost, I worked between undergraduate and graduate school, similar to Noah, and I thought that was actually hugely beneficial because it solidified that architecture is actually what I wanted to do. With an architecture degree, as we have mentioned multiple times before on this broadcast, you can do a lot of other things, and you're not just pigeonholed into doing architecture as we all traditionally think about it as building buildings. And so I actually interned with Cooper Carey, where I am now, and I talked to a lot of different people that I respected there during my internship and asked them, hey, where did you go? Why did you find that experience valuable? Now, I applied at all of the big name schools because just to see if I measured up. And I went and visited a lot of them. I went and visited Miami. I, of course, applied to Georgia Tech as well. I got into many of the schools I applied to. Ultimately, I kind of made a bit of a counterintuitive decision for a lot of people that I was talking with and went to Miami. And ultimately, it was because of the people. They wanted me. And in many of the cases when I went to other schools, I got a bit of a cold reception. And Georgia Tech, it was very similar. And so I felt like I was going from one place that very much felt like home to another place that was very quickly felt like home to me. And yes, Julie brought it up. I am a beach bum. And so being that close to water and sand again may have had a slight influence on me. I won't say how much though.
Yeah, I can really echo what T-Jack was saying. And I would say for me, the period between receiving my acceptances and making that decision really showed to me a lot about the schools and which programs value you, as a person and as someone that they're really excited about having joined the program versus just, another student on the list of incoming students. For me, I really wanted to be near a bigger city. I was already in Atlanta, so there's not too many that are necessarily larger. So I did look mostly in the Northeast near New York. I had always heard great things about Yale. One of the things I did is looked at faculty members at Georgia Tech and outside of Georgia Tech that I admired and that I enjoyed having, and I looked at where they went or where they had taught in the past, and I thought that that really helped shape my list as well. And a lot of my favorite teachers had been up in the Northeast before, so that contributed to there. And then I just took that gamble and applied and saw what happened. And I really felt a good, warm reception from Yale, even with everything that's gone on lately, all the madness of the world. They've really been vocal with us. So despite everything, I'm definitely excited with my choice and glad that I have Georgia Tech under my belt. I applied there as well. And that was a tough decision, but I'll be back on campus any chance I get.
That's great. Question for all of you now, opening it back up. I'm curious to hear you talk a little bit about ways in which you've used or leveraged your undergraduate degree in a way that you didn't expect. I mean, because certainly, when you start off studying architecture, majoring in architecture, you may have had an expectation at the point, maybe you didn't. But I'm just wondering, could you share some things that, something that maybe surprised you in how you used your degree?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one too. I've definitely taken a more conventional route, going from undergrad in architecture to pursuing a graduate degree in architecture as well. But I will say that a lot of my classmates that were applying to schools, we definitely were not limited to architecture programs. I saw students apply and are now going to attend schools for engineering, public policy, city planning, and I guess kind of how I differentiated came through in the courses I took within the school that weren't necessarily focused on architecture. I was kind of built my interest in the field through real estate, so I definitely jumped on a few classes in real estate development and finance, and that's kind of proven helpful now at John Portman and Associates, Portman Architects, which is a firm with a history in development. So I work with a lot of business people that are talking a totally different language than us architects, and kind of having some ability to mediate between the two is really unique and something that I got out of my education that I didn't necessarily expect that I would.
So I definitely did not think I would go into the field of construction until that fellow student I talked about introduced me to it, and I was like, oh, I actually like this. But I was kind of one of those people that I could design things and be creative, but I also wanted to know where the toilets were going to be. So I like to see how things go together, and more from a structural side, I would say. So it's been very interesting just seeing that, but also what I'm doing. I'm a general contractor, so we work with the architect on the project we're on right now. So it's definitely helped see how they make their decisions. And you'll hear horror stories about contractors working with architects and how we tell them it can't be built and they say it needs to be built this way, and this ongoing battle. And seeing both sides has definitely given me some backing and being like, hey, if we can make that work, we need to, because I get what the language they're speaking, or hey guys, you're being ridiculous, we're not doing that. So it definitely gives you insight into both worlds.
And I think kind of continuing off of what Ashlyn said, I don't work for an architecture firm, so I'd say every day is kind of unexpected. I think the most interesting way that I use my degree is in preparing and giving presentations. At Georgia Tech, we had to present our projects to varying groups of, could be 2 to 3 people, it could be 50 people, it really just kind of depended. And, I feel like this really helped me to navigate what information is important versus, what can be fluff. How do I effectively get my ideas across? And ultimately, how am I getting people engaged enough to listen to what I have to say and then move forward based on what I'm presenting to them? So, it's not necessarily unexpected that, after going through architecture school, you're a great problem solver. But I do think, a lot of people think, oh, I'm an architect, now I have to design someone's home or I have to design a school. A lot of what you learn in architecture school can also be applied. Those skill sets can be applied to other jobs where you're problem solving and, using your design thinking in other ways.
So similar to both Noah and Jackie, I took a very traditional route to get where I am right now. But in the fact that I do have an architecture job, one of my responsibilities as a part of that job has actually been as the chairman of the steering committee. And now actually I'm on a strategic planning task force where I'm actually writing the strategic plan for our firm. And so in that regard, taking the design thinking that I learned through undergraduate studies at Georgia Tech and applying it to business mindset and kind of designing the firm of the future, that has been unexpected. I've always had an interest in business and I've taken some courses in it and whatnot, but I'm actually surprised at how much of my degree in architecture is helping me in strategizing, planning, and designing the firm of the future. So
That's great. Exciting. It's so great to kind of hear all the ways in which you took aspects of your undergraduate degree and are applying it in such diverse ways. And now, I wanted to answer one question that has come up in the Q&A, and TJ, I might ask you if you want to jump in on this one as well. But someone's asking, what is the difference between getting a bachelor's in architecture, a B.Arch, versus getting I guess the difference between the 4-year Bachelor of Science with the 2-year Master's as well. And I'd love to hear TJ's perspective on this, from someone who's in a role that's, looking at applications and hiring for folks coming into a large firm. I'll say from a curricular side of things, the 5-year B.Arch has very little flexibility in it. That's really kind of at a very high level. It's a big difference between a 5-year B.Arch and the 4-year Bachelor of Science in architecture. The 4-year Bachelor of Science in architecture is a pre-professional degree and essentially serves as a kind of a platform to prepare you for study in a professional degree program. So you may have heard it, referred to as a 4+2. The 5-year B.Arch basically takes what all the core required courses you would need in architecture and puts it in 5 years, which means you might have room for one elective of that. I've taught in programs in the past where it was a 5-year B.Arch and it's just very, very little flexibility. TJ, I'd like to hear your thoughts about the effect of the two paths, the 5-year B.Arch or 4+2, in terms of the kinds of job, the difference between a first professional degree and then the professional degree.
All right, so, backing up a little bit to when I was applying, I specifically looked for a 4+2 because I knew enough about myself, very little, but enough, to know that I was going to want the option to potentially go somewhere else and have someone else teach me. And so that's where I see a lot of benefit in the 4+2 from a study standpoint and from a curriculum standpoint. From a professional standpoint, and when we are hiring people, we obviously we hire quite a few undergraduate students from Georgia Tech. Our namesake, Jerry Cooper, actually designed the West Architecture Building. So and went there, of course, as well as a lot of our leadership. But it's one in which we look at that as a potential for gaining those new graduates or those interns when they are still fresh and they're still thinking about, is this really what I want to do? And there's some opportunity there, and it really there's some flexibility and some freedom. So people may not know if they really want to do architecture, and they've got oftentimes a more diverse set of interests because they did think that, well, maybe I want to take my architecture degree and go design cars with it, or to do something completely different. And so it's actually it's a great kind of tool for us in looking at people who have 4-year degrees, because it's a different way of thinking and a different a different field of thought and ideas to draw from, because typically you're just interested in more things than that. Because for many people, the idea of nailing down in your junior year of high school that you are going to follow this path of architecture, that's a big step for a lot of people. And so, granted, there's plenty that do it and do it well. But it's fun to see the people who are on the other side of that, who maybe want to keep their options open.
Yeah, go ahead, Ashlyn. Go.
So I was going to say, I don't plan as of right now to go back for a master's, but I would say if I did, it would definitely be beneficial taking a break and working, just because I know so much more just from getting hands-on experience. And I think I could do that much better in school just because of working out in the real world. So that's my take on that.
Oh, that's great. I think so. I feel very similarly to TJack. You know, when I started college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I actually came into architecture pretty late. My undergraduate degree is actually not a Bachelor of Science degree. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree. So it's a non-professional degree. So when I decided that I did want to study architecture, my program was at that point it was like a 3.5-year Master of Architecture program, and I took time off between undergraduate study and graduate study as well. But so for myself, it's like I definitely well, I don't know if I consciously wanted the flexibility, but I definitely needed the flexibility as an undergraduate because I didn't know what I was going to do. So hopefully that answers the question about the differences between those degrees. I think that obviously we're in a creative discipline. When I think about creativity and the things that we do, I like to think of it very broadly, that it's not just about designing a building as a kind of a discrete object, but I think we can apply creative thinking across a wide range of things. And I think we've heard from the four of you how you've applied that in the various things that you're involved in, the things that you've done in the past and things you're doing now, things you want to do in the future. A question for all of you is, who do you want to design for? And is your answer to that, does that relate to what you've chosen as your particular career path?
So, I think for me, I want to design a holistic product and project. So, from conception to end user. And also in particular, I do enjoy working on projects that are socially minded. That's what I love so much about that design build project that I was a part of. And so while working on that, I saw a lot of the behind the scenes, from obtaining building permits, zoning, going and getting funding for the project, working with the local community to find out what they needed, and then having the local community rally around a project. I found that in doing that, I actually enjoyed all of the background work that goes into the project from start to finish. And so I realized that I needed more education on the real estate, development and investment side of things. And so at my current job, I take raw land, we decide the best use for it, which tends to be more from a financial perspective right now, just because we are answering to investors. And then, we go out and we pitch it to different capital groups. And ultimately, I see the project from start to finish. Sometimes even that means operating a hotel for a few years until we ultimately sell it. So, really that entire package of a project. And, while I haven't reached, my personal end goal yet, I do think, and I understand that especially in my 20s is really a time to do my homework, learn as much as I can, get as many experiences as I can, so that, someday I can help choose the projects that I'm working on, and, hopefully establish a company that chooses to invest in these socially minded projects. But for right now, I understand that what I like to do is the entire project. And so it's, working up to the point where I can not only enjoy the type of work I'm doing, but also the final product that I'm working on.
So for me, in starting at Georgia Tech, I really gained an appreciation and a real interest in urban design. And that continued while I was at Cooper Carey. I actually straddled the fence between the mixed-use studio and the center, which was our urban design studio for planning. At that point, it also influenced my decision to go to Miami, because at the time they were kind of the center of new urbanism. And I didn't get my degree in that, although I could have. I just took a lot of elective courses that allowed me to continue that interest. Really in coming back to work for Cooper Carey after a stint with another architecture firm down in South Florida, that's when I kind of was able to make my decision as to, okay, where do I really want to be, and who do I want to be designing for? And so the idea that to be clear, I'm an associate principal in the hospitality studio, so I do nothing but hotels and resorts at this point. That obviously links back to that whole beach bum thing. So, but the idea that I can design something, not only a building, but take that into an entire master planning effort and be a part of a much larger piece of the overall puzzle within a city, and focus on kind of high density locations and projects in order to kind of realize the environmental standards that I've kind of set for myself, but also as an industry that we're really moving towards. If you don't know, the building industry actually contributes more CO2 to our atmosphere than almost anything else besides transportation. The building industry is a major contributor, and it's a big goal of American Institute of Architecture that we reduce that. And so it's the 2030 challenge. Look it up if you haven't heard of it. But to be able to impact our world and the way that we live in that regard, I am right where I want to be. I'm designing for who I want to. And it's even better when it's a hotel and I get to stay in it too.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a nice perk.
Yeah, it is.
So I can kind of relate to both Jackie and T-Jack a little bit. In that, being in my early 20s, I'm definitely at that point where I'm still trying to figure out. And in my first couple internships, I did a lot of residential where you're designing for, a few people. Those people aren't really going to change for the course of the project. But now, like TJAC, I'm working at a hospitality firm doing, large hotels that, soon will be once again filled with thousands of people that change every day. And so when you do that, I know, um, with that, it just opens up, so many new challenges and things that you have to consider because who you're designing for and what you're designing for is always changing. And you have to consider social changes, environmental changes, like what's going on now. How can architecture be at that cutting edge to address, what's happening at our time? And there's also considerations that, with the residents, money and impact of the build might not be considerations, but when you do get to projects that impact a city or an urban environment, you have to consider, like with the CO2 problem, how are we impacting the city, how the city feels, how the city works, how the city looks, but also, you're impacting the environment as well. So just so many unique challenges. So I think I'm definitely moving more in the direction. I think that my interests are in the public realm for sure.
So, know what you're thinking. She's in construction. She doesn't design. She builds. But so this actually was kind of a hard question because of that fact for me. But the surface we do build. But what I've learned, well, of course, we design the whole process behind construction logistics and where the crane goes and that side of things. But I've kind of realized right now I'm designing to understand, not for any particular being, I guess. So kind of like Jackie and Bai said, right now I'm in a period of learning and just soaking in as much as I can. But what I have seen in terms of contractors and architects working together, a lot of times architects will bring a design issue to the general contractor, and be like, hey, how would you do this in the field? Because I don't exactly know how this would go together. And that's probably my favorite part, is getting these kind of design problems and figuring out how to make them go together. And that's something I didn't really understand going to school for architecture, was how much sometimes the architect does need to rely on the subcontractors or the contractor to help them get an issue resolved. So hopefully at some point I will design to assist instead of to understand, but I'll still be learning. But that's where I'm at right now.
I love that. I love all four of your answers. I think it's really terrific. And so I'm keeping an eye on the time. In the chat, in the regular chat, not in the Q&A, I have posted a link that'll take you to a video that lives on the Institute admissions page. If you go to that page, and you'll see that there are a whole bunch of videos that you can choose from. If you go down to the School of Architecture, you can click on that link, and that'll take you to a video that'll give you an overview of the School of Architecture. You'll hear from, I think it's like 4 or 5 of our undergraduate students, our current students. You'll hear them say a few things, and then you'll learn more about the program, the curriculum, hear more about some of the study abroad programs that you heard referenced to today, our career outreach programs, and just more about the culture of the school. So I want to thank Noah, TJAC, Jackie, and Ashlyn so much for your time today. It was really terrific hearing you all share your reflections on your time as a student, some of the things that you talked about also relative to your current trajectory. So thank you very much. And for those of you who are watching this webinar, I look forward to seeing you on campus.